Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Outliers YouTube channel and our program, Get to Know. I'm your host, DP Lyle. Kathleen Antrim is not with us today. She's busy doing something. I don't know what, probably getting her hair done, but that's neither here nor there. We have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful guest today, the great Walter Mosley. I mean, what can you say about Walter? Good Lord. He's had a career that every writer, including myself, would envy. He's won the National Book Awards Medal for Distinguished Contribution in American Literatures. He's won a handful of Edgars. He's even an Edgar Grand Master for the Mystery Writers of America. He's won a PEN USA Lifetime Achievement Award, the Robert Kirsch Award, several NAACP Image Awards. Oh, and by the way, he writes short stories, plays, novels, screenplays, and a few other things. He's even was the writer and executive producer for Snowfall on FX. Walter, welcome.
Hey, thanks. Great to
You
be here.
you have such a list of credentials that it's scary, and your writing is overwhelmingly good. I know you've been compared to people like Hammett and Chandler and the great Chester Himes, but a little more modern. Let's back up a little bit. When you were a kid and growing up and in high school and all that stuff, what do you think about that upbringing? What do you think about your childhood led you to be an author?
Um, well, I don't know actually. The truth is, I'm from Los Angeles,
Right?
and so I'm really a Californian, and not only am I California, I came up in the hippie era, uh, hippiedom and television, and the thing about being in California, people don't necessarily do things like, according to somebody else's schedule. I mean, it's just that's part of, living in the sun all the time.
Right.
In California, if a woman retires at the age of, in America, if a woman retires at the age of 70, you ask her what she's going to do, and she says, well, I'm going to take care of my grandchildren and visit with my, son or daughter and their people, take care of my silly husband. But you know, in California, if you ask a woman in her 70s, just retired, what are you going to do? She said, well, I'm still very limber, and I'm thinking about starting a ballet troupe. And you say, oh man, you're crazy. But then a year or two later, they're performing for the president. You know what I mean? It's that kind of thing. I didn't start writing till I was 35, really, 35, 34. By that time, I had moved to the East Coast. I was living in New York. And all of a sudden, I was a computer programmer. I decided one day, well, let me see if I can write something. Maybe that's what I should be doing. Because I never thought I should be a programmer. It was just a way to make money, and it worked. I mean, I kept writing and writing and writing, and I ended up where I am.
Yeah. When you first sat down and decided you're going to pen something, uh, where did you get your inspiration? Not so much the inspiration for the story, but your inspiration to write, and what made you think you could do it?
Well, I
Because
didn't
we
know
all
I could
start
do
that
it.
way.
I don't really know. I wrote a sentence on hot, sticky days in southern Louisiana, the fire ant swarm. I went, wow, that sounds good. And it has to be fiction because I've never been to Louisiana or seen a fire ant. So I'm making it up in a way, whether
Yeah.
or not it's real. And and that was that it was like it came from there. And then I kept writing, and it wasn't that I wanted to be good or better than. I just wanted to be able to write a story, beginning, middle, and end. That was
Yeah.
it. That's what I wanted to do, and I tried very hard. I went to took a class, a course, a graduate course at a city college in New York, and I happened to have, as a teacher in one semester, one of the greatest writers in the English language, Edna O'Brien. And Edna was, I was working with her, and I wrote a little, couple of stories that I put together. And she says, oh, Walter, write a novel like that. She's very imperious and beautiful and wonderful and great. And I said, okay, I'm gonna write a novel because I was told by Edna O'Brien to write a novel, and I did. And it went from there.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's very similar. I wanted to write. I said when I retired from practice, my medical practice, that I would write. But 25 so years ago, I said, well, if not now, when? And I took a couple of classes at UC Irvine here in Orange County, and then joined a couple of writing groups and just started writing. But
Yeah.
so you learned kind of on the job then, kind of the same way. You just started
Yeah.
writing and see what would happen. Yeah.
Right. I mean, a lot of things you do, yeah,
Yeah.
it is technical. I mean,
Right.
if you're gonna be a plumber, there's rules that you have to follow, stuff like that.
Right.
But in many of the arts, it's the breaking of rules that becomes important. To say, well, I'm not going to say what you said. I'm going to say something different, and I'm going to say it in a different way. Not that that think that somebody else is doing something wrong, but because I was trying to find my voice, in the
Mm-hmm.
work, and that was great. I had a great
Yeah.
time.
Were you a big reader? Did you read a lot? Is that?
Well,
Yeah.
it's an interesting thing. I read. I do read. I'm a very slow reader. Um, and I have to really, concentrate and, to think out things because I kind of have a frenetic way of thinking. And I love literature and what literature means, but my writing, I never connect that with my reading, really.
Okay.
I've never felt that, well, I read this and that it influenced me. It might influence me who got elected for president. It might influence me, now being, 73, many things, falling in love, falling out of love, not ever, having it, whatever, those things influence me. But reading somebody else's stuff I just love it. Wow, you're telling me a story. I'm reading Gabriel Garcia Marquez, and he's talking about,
Yeah.
100
Yeah.
Years of Solitude. I'm saying, damn, this is great.
It is.
It never enters my writing mind. It only enters my reading, and I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but it probably influences you to some. Well, let's go back to those days, before we move up to the modern times and the new book.
Mm-hmm.
You created what I consider, and I think everybody considers, one of the iconic characters in crime fiction, in Easy Rawlins. And I mean, what a fabulous, fabulous character. And to this day, The Devil with the Blue Dress is one of the best books I've ever read. And I
Well,
remember when
thank
I
you.
read it, I thought, good Lord, I want to do this. Um, so a couple of questions about that. Obviously, that was made into a movie with Denzel. Did you have
Mhm.
anything to do with that with Denzel, or did this
Well,
do all
I
that? Or
mean, I met with Denzel because I mean
yeah,
he wanted the role, and of
okay,
course, and listen, I wanted him to have it, but you never make a deal with an actor because actors have a whole other thing that that's their
exactly.
agenda. So, but then I met Carl Franklin, who wanted to be the director, and he came in and he did like this fantastic job. Got all these great people: Jennifer Beals, Don Cheadle, Tom Sizemore, all those great people, and we put together, so I was a part of all of that happening, but I didn't start working film
Right,
kind of stuff till much later.
much later.
Yeah.
How much of you is in Easy?
um it's interesting, not much. I mean,
Okay,
everything, because I create easy, but not
right.
much really in my day to day. My father, a lot of people said, well, the book was based on my father, and my father did inform it a lot, but he came up to me and he says, Walter, uh, they say that I'm in this book. And I said, well, yeah, Dad, that's what they say. And he said, I said, what do you think? And he goes, I don't see it. You know, so if you start talking to me about influences, I can tell you my father influenced it, but my father told me he's not even in it. So,
Yeah, horses
what
for
do you say?
courses. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, you mentioned Don Cheadle. If I listed my top 10 actors of all time, Don Cheadle's one of them. I just love that guy. I love everything he's in. But he played Mouse.
Yeah.
And where did Mouse come from? That truly is an incredible character.
Well, my father had a friend, when I was really a little kid, and he and my mother, they lived in Watts. They were kind of poor. They worked hard. They were always, like $10, short every, week,
Mhm.
but that's how life was. Um, and they had a friend, and he used to hijack liquor trucks. among other things. And what he would do is he would bring like a case of quarts of whiskey and leave it with my father and say, well, hold on to this, Roy. I'll come and pick it up from you next week. I don't have any place to keep it right now. My father would tell him, yeah. And then when the guy would come back, a week later, 3 bottles were gone. And he said, well, thank you for the thing, but you owe me $30 for the bottles. And my father would pay him, And and he used to talk a lot about that guy who ended up, he was in a barbershop in a crap game, and he told one of the guys, said, man, you owe me a nickel. And the guy said, I don't owe you anything. I don't owe you a nickel. That didn't happen. And whatever it was, he killed the guy. And he said, you don't pay me my nickel, your blood's going to be on the floor. And that's what happened. And that guy got arrested and put in jail. He's dead now, but he was in jail for a very long time.
Yeah.
That was the basis from it. Mouse was much more than that, but that was the foundation. My father telling that story and laughing when he was telling the story about how that guy, the information about how he lived, plus my father's laugh, my father who I love so much, made Mouse exist.
Staggerly shot Billy. And that's basically the story. Yeah. Well, Mouse is such a great character because he's unexpected. And he does unexpected things, and he and Easy together. People who have not read Devil in the Blue Dress do and have not seen the movie. The movie is fantastic too. So you don't often see that. They usually take a good book and destroy it, but this they didn't. And
choosing Carl Franklin as the director.
Yeah.
My agent is a woman named Gloria Loomis. Her husband was a guy named Walter Bernstein. Walter Bernstein, among other things, wrote The Front with Woody Allen and Zero Mostel. Walter told me, he said, listen, you can never control a movie, but if you choose the right director, you have the best chance of making a good movie. And, Carl came to me and he'd made a lovely movie before that. And I said, okay, let's do it. And everything worked.
Well, the other of your characters, your series characters that I really like is Leonid McGill. I mean, that is a great character, and those are fun stories. He's like a spinoff of Easy, but he's not. He's his own character, and
he's contemporary. He's New York. He's
right.
And it's fun to to write about Leonid, because it's a different world. I have discussions with people sometimes. Sometimes I'll talk about Easy, and Easy lives in a world that's kind of based on race. I mean, race is such an important thing. And a lot of people say, Walter, it's just too much. He's thinking about being black, 13 times a day. I said, yeah, I know that's because I cut it down from the 107 times that it happened,
Exactly.
but you have, if you're going to talk about a period of time, there has to be truth, not real events that happen, but the kind of life that people live. I just finished an Easy novel. It's not coming out for a while yet, called Gray Dawn. And Easy goes into this big place that Jackson Blue works at now, an international insurance company, and a guard comes up to him and says, "What are you doing here?" There's 200 people in the entrance hall, and he comes up to him, the one black person, says, "What you doing here?" And Easy wants to kill him. He's not going to kill him, but he wants to kill him because this is he's been living this his whole life. People are always asking, why are you here? You don't belong here. You're not one of the people that I'm protecting, and Leonid, that's not the world Leonid lives in. I mean, there's some racism in there and stuff too, but Leonid is living a whole other kind of world of criminality. And that's what's fun to see America in its different moments and revelation.
Well, this only proves what people have said many times, that setting makes a story. And for Easy to be in South Central, obviously your roots and all that, he had to be there. He had to be there.
Right. Yeah. And when people come up, people have come to me and said, well, we'd like to make another movie. I said, but can we make him contemporary? And I said, no. You
No.
can't do him. You can do somebody else.
Yeah.
Nathan, you can
Yeah.
do Leonard McGill. You can do Joe Oliver. That's okay with me. But Easy is where he is.
Easy's where he is and at the time that he is,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it works very, very, very well. I mean, it does. So an odd story here. I mean, tell me about John Woman. I mean, that was a book when I read it, I thought, wow.
Well, I to talk about John Woman, I'm very interested uh, in one the theoretical and sometimes literary and sometimes philosophical, a notion that of the deconstructionist, that you can't understand something unless you can take it apart and put it back together again, basically. And so the deconstructionist doesn't believe anything; they just take it all apart, and there's no real thing that you can base deconstructionism on except the study of history. There
Mm-hmm.
is no way to know your history. History is an impossible subject. It because in order to know history, you have to know everything, and you can't. It's impossible to know everything. And I wanted to write about that. I wanted to write, and I have a character, and the character is, the character has a father who's just really, really intellectual and has read everything about history. Um, but he's an older black man. He's a projectionist in a silent movie theater, uh, and and his son is a sociopath who's read everything that his father has read, and 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 the idea that he's trying to put together the idea that you have a history, you need a history, but you will never understand that history. That was what the book was about. And it was so much fun to write, but I write those kinds of books and people, they don't,
Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah.
It was a departure, but I'm going to tell you, it was wonderful. And it's like
Well, thank
you
you.
start reading it, it's like, wait a minute, now who's the author? Is this Walsh? But it was so well done. Yeah,
Well, thank you. I
well,
really appreciate that because it's hard. A lot of times, my bread and butter is crime novels. About
sure.
45% of what I write, and it's fun. And I really like it, and I like it that people like it. But there are other things, that you can begin to talk about that don't fit. You can't fit it in a mystery.
Yep. Well, let's talk about Joe King Oliver then. Let's
Okay.
and and let's talk about this is the new one.
Yeah.
Uh, Great cover, by the way. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, the
Uh,
covers are good. I really like that publisher.
yeah,
They're really doing a good job with that.
yeah. I think it's very. It just asks a lot of questions of you when you look at it. Uh, so tell us about this. Tell us about Oliver, and tell us about the story and how all this is coming about and doing.
Well, I mean, to begin with, Joe Oliver is he used to be a policeman, but he took his job too seriously. He thought he was supposed to solve crimes, even when they dealt with people who might have been involved with the police. And he's almost been destroyed by that. He's certainly been fired and kicked out, and he lost his wife. The only thing he's really kept is his grandmother and his daughter, Asia, AJA, uh, and he's in this book, he has two cases. One is a kind of a minor case, of a woman whose husband wants to find her and kill her. He's originally hired to find her, and then he realizes, that he maybe should be doing something else. And then his grandmother, who might be dying, says, "I need you to find your father." His father went to prison years and years ago. And Joe's always been angry at him for not getting himself out of prison, which he could have done. And now he has to change everything. And he has to kind of sift through his entire life looking for his father through all the people that his dad has known and who he has known. In the middle of all of that, he meets a woman who he might be in love with. He doesn't really know anything about that, but that's a new thing for him, really, since quite a while. And it's just about following some like you know a guy once said to me, he said, "Look, men see life. They, they get a job, they do one thing at a time, one thing at a time. This is an older time, but it's still part of our culture where the man has the job and the woman is at home, and the woman does everything. She takes care of the kids, she feeds, she meets with everybody who's working around. So the woman is juggling 20 things. The man is doing one thing. He does it all day long, and he comes home and he feels, well, I'm making the money. I'm the and and the idea for me for private detectives, well, yeah, he has a job, but he's not a cop. He's not a policeman who just goes and does that and then comes home. He might have 2 jobs or 3 jobs. He might not have any job for a while. So he has to maintain all of these relationships, understand the city, work as much as he can to take care of everything he can. And lately, those are the kind of stories that I've been writing, and they're not like A stories and B stories. There's stories and cases in the case of a detective that he's trying to follow. So you have that. He's trying to deal with this woman and see if he can save her. She's, like most clients, is telling him some truths and some lies. He's dealing with his friend Melquarth, who is, he's an evil man. He's an evil man, but he doesn't want to be. And when you get through all of it, what I'm trying to do is develop a character who you understand, and like, where's his father? What happened to his mother? How can I save my dad? How can I do what my grandmother asked?
Yeah.
It's all of that stuff,
Yeah. That's the beauty of good characters, that there's a little bit of you in them, and so you can really identify with them. I
Yeah.
think this is the reason I personally, and obviously you do too, enjoy writing about private type investigators.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to be licensed PIs, but they have to be off the radar and not in the system. And because it's such great fodder for storytelling and character building, because they're not in that regimented rule, blue uniform thing. They're out in the field crawling around in the gutters. And
Yeah, and they're having all this. The thing I enjoyed the most writing in this book. I mean, I like, enjoyed the book a lot in writing it, but the thing that I enjoyed the most was, at one point, he's talking to the woman whose husband is, wants to kill her, and she says, "Who's this guy Melquarth?" And he said, "Well, he's my friend. He's putting you up. It's pretty good." She goes, "Yeah, but there's something wrong with him." And she said, "What?" He was talking to my daughter, and she said, "Where was he? Where did he do for vacation?" He said he went to Kenya with a friend of his from Kenya, and they started doing lion hunting." And Joe's crazy. He says, "He was hunting lions?" She said, "No, he said he was hunting lion hunters." He had
oh
made the choice to go to Kenya with this man who lives there, and says, "Let's kill as many lion hunters as we can find." And it's just that, just the choice, somebody making that choice. I
yes,
mean, I'm sure somebody does make that choice, right?
even dreaming it up, and that's pretty.
But
But
it was so much fun because there's something about the real stories, because there's real stories in fiction. It's just that they haven't happened, but they're real stories. But it's, a lot of people, they'll meet people and talk to them and learn from them and recoil from them. And it's just if you can make that feel real, which I hope I did in this book, then it frees you
yeah,
from a certain
yeah,
kind of deadly gravity.
yeah, yeah. Which brings up a question: do you consider yourself a pantser or an outliner? I mean, do you that old age-old question that we all get?
I don't know. I mean, it's like, I mean, I think it depends. Here's, because, we're writers. Okay, fine. And when you write the book and nobody has seen it, it's your book.
Right,
But when you send it out into the world, it becomes their book,
right.
and the decision of like who I am or who the narrator is or who the storyteller is more up to the readers than it is to me. I'm writing this because I have a great deal of fun doing it. I love doing it.
Yeah.
You know, And so I'm putting it together, but I don't know, like, well, what
I
is
mean, do you
what
sit
is
down and make a formal outline, or you just have an idea and a couple of scenes and just
well,
start writing?
sometimes I do an
Yeah,
outline.
yeah,
I'm writing a new Joe Oliver right now, and there's I just said I'll just start writing and see where it
yeah,
goes.
yeah,
Because I know Joe and I know his friends and
exactly.
and I know what he's like. So let's see what'll happen.
Yeah,
And I started in California, which is odd. He's in California because his grandmother, this serious black woman, from Tennessee, um, has cancer and she's in her 90s, and her boyfriend is the richest man in the world. Richest man in the world says, "Well, I'll pay this hospital $10 million so you don't die." And and Joe's out there visiting with her, and she said, "Well, I met another guy in that place, and he's having trouble. Can you help him out?" It's just it's for me. I had no idea where it was going when I first started
yeah,
writing it.
yeah,
I didn't even know what the guy's name was until Joe meets him. And that's a lot of fun. But
yeah. I
sometimes,
love that.
especially when you're rushed, you outline it, 1, 2, 3. You get down to about 50. You say, okay, that's enough chapters, and then you write them. But
Yeah,
um, but sometimes, I because I know I write a different kind of book when I don't outline it,
yeah,
and I like that.
yeah. That's the way I do it. I like that too because you don't know what's coming. Well, let me ask you this, and this is a question we all get. What's the one thing that you would tell your young self when you were first starting this and trying to decide if you could do this and start putting those? What's the one thing you wish you had learned decades earlier about writing?
You know, I'm not. Listen, I don't want to sound like a hopeless optimist, but the thing is that I've been that question has come up
Yeah,
recently here and there, and for different reasons. And the thing that I feel the most, I had a mentor at City College named Frederick Tutton, and Frederick, I was writing, and I had a couple of reading events. It was in New York, one down in the Village, and then one up north, on the west side in Manhattan. And I would, and I was writing stories and sending them out, and mostly getting rejected, but sometimes getting accepted. And you know, and one day Frederick was talking to me, and I was talking about the future. So, well, if I could sell this book, then this would happen and that would happen. And Frederick said, well, Walter, that's really true, and it'll be really great. But you have to remember one thing. And I said, what? He says, this is the best time of your life. You're writing, you're writing anything you want, thinking anything you want, putting it down on paper, not worried about it because nobody's even looking at you anyway. He said,
yeah,
it's the best time of your life. And now I don't have to wish somebody told me that because he did.
yeah,
And
yeah,
and I share that with young and new artists all the
yeah,
time. I say,
yeah,
wait a second, you have to understand. Right now, this is the best year that you'll ever have.
yeah,
You might keep that up. Other times might be great, but this is going to be wonderful, and
yeah,
you should enjoy it. And that's what I think that everybody should understand. And if it isn't the best right now, there's something wrong with what you're
yeah.
doing.
I agree. Be fun. Make it fun because you should enjoy the writing. Because I'm going to tell you what, if you don't enjoy it, you'll
Yeah.
quit doing it.
Or you'll
'Cause
hate
it's
doing
not,
it.
yeah, because
You
it's
know,
not easy. It's not easy.
yeah.
Well, where can people find you and order your books and learn all about you and things
Well,
like
I
that?
think I have waltermosley.com, and I have a Facebook, account, of course. And,
Yeah,
I'm not doing a lot, and when you start talking to writers about seriously about what's going on, we're in an interesting technological world right now.
yes.
Now knowledge doubles about every 10 months nowadays.
Hmm.
Before World War I, it doubled every century. And things change so fast. So I'm finding that being out on tour doesn't really help because they don't have local media anymore. I mean, really, hardly at all. The
No.
newspapers, radio stations, television stations, none of that. And so going to towns doesn't seem to be helpful. I'm going to do a couple of readings in Los Angeles at Vroman's.
Yep.
And one other bookstore, and then I'm going to do a little out in in New York, and then I'm going to do go to St. Louis, and that's it. Those are all
Yeah.
things I'm going to do,
Yeah.
and all that'll be on my website and stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
I think most writers are that way now. They realize that this tour business really doesn't work, that it's really all electronic. It really is.
yeah,
Interfacing with people and getting new readers and talking to your readers, it's all done like this now. It
yeah,
really.
right. It's true, and and even that it's not questionable. It's just how to go about doing it. Sometimes, I remember when we were working on Snowfall, uh, we brought in, an actor who had, over 1 million followers, and we thought that that would impact viewership in the show, but they didn't follow him for acting or for television, and so it had no impact on it. He was a wonderful
Interesting.
actor, and it was great, so we were happy with it. But it's a hard thing to figure out, and I'm always working
Yeah.
with people and trying to figure out how to, reach out to more people and sell books. But
Sure.
I do well enough. I'm not
Yeah.
trying to be,
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
mean, I love Lee Childs and John Grisham. They're nice people. I would love to sell that amount of books, but I'm happier with my career. So,
Good. Are you going to go to any conferences that other writers might see this
I don't know.
year?
I might go down to BoucherCon,
Yeah. Do
in
I'll
New
be there. It'll
Orleans.
be fun.
Yeah, I might go
And
down to BoucherCon. I think that's the only, and of course Thriller Fest. I always go there. So in
yeah.
New York, and I think it's in July. I think
Either
that's
June. I think it might be June, but whatever. Yeah.
June. I'll be
It's
I'll be at
it'll be
Thriller
hot.
Fest.
I know
Yeah.
that. It always is. Well, Walter, love you, man. This has been fantastic.
Well,
I
thank
greatly
you.
appreciate it.
Thank
Um,
you.
and I'm sure I will see you in BoucherCon, I hope, and because I'll definitely be there for that.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to get down to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in New Orleans. Why wouldn't you, baby?
Yeah.
It's
Well, because it's in the middle of the summer. That's why.
yeah, exactly. It's August, right?
It's hot.
That's why God invented air conditioning.
All right. Thanks a
I
lot.
and it's great, and I appreciate you being here. And folks, we're going to wrap this up. And as you know, this is the Outliers YouTube channel. Our programs Get to Know, and we will be back with more down the road. And until then, keep reading, keep writing, and keep laughing, and try not to get caught. But whatever you do, have fun.